It has become really popular on the internet.com to talk about a thing called the Great Reset. Now, I, of course, on this channel don't discuss this topic. And the reason why I don't discuss this topic is because if you talk about the Great Reset, I don't know if you're aware of this, you're a conspiracy theorist whack job. Just because you can point to government officials calling for a Great Reset, the World Economic Forum calling for a Great Reset, books, white papers, and all these different things calling their plan for the future post-COVID the Great Reset, doesn't mean that that doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist nutjob. It's one of those things where, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, because there's a lot of these things in the Western world, in the United States of America, where if you're in favor of it, then it exists, it's awesome, welcome to the team, bow down to your overlords, and enjoy the Great Reset. But if you're against it, if you think maybe it's not such a good idea to let people who openly say that they don't like you and they don't want you to prosper plan our re-emergence from the pandemic, then of course you're a conspiracy theorist nutjob and you need to be removed from the internet.com. So we don't talk about that nonsense over here on this channel. We don't get into that. We focus on the facts as presented to us, and of course, what I like to call the Great Unraveling. Because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there is something afoot in this great country. It is worse in specific states and in specific cities, and that is the fact that we're descending into complete and utter lawlessness. Crime is up, and again, we're not just talking about murders, burglaries, assaults, and all sorts of other violent crimes, but the atmosphere of criminality is up. People are out on the streets. We are seeing third world diseases re-emerge in these homeless encampments, and people who are living in these areas that are especially afflicted by this have had enough. They want to stand up. They want their representatives to hear them, and what we're going to talk about today is Santa Monica, because in Santa Monica, the residents decided to get together and try out of desperation to inform everyone that this isn't normal, this isn't safe, and they put up a big sign indicating that. Now, I'm going to get into this story. I want to talk to you about it, but I just want to tell you that this video isn't sponsored. So thank you to those of you who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join, because this is a special one just for you folks.
So this growing group say they have simply had enough. They are at their wits' end, and they're willing to try anything to get city leaders to listen.
Day and night, the promenades turn into a mental asylum. Very, very sick people who need to be institutionalized and need medical help.
Now, it is just an absolute fact that the homeless problem has gotten worse across this nation. Now, a lot of people want to blame economic devastation, ruination, inflation, whatever, as the cause of what we're seeing, but it is very important to note that what we're seeing in certain parts of the country seems to be concentrated, and a lot of these increases predate the pandemic. They predate the economic devastation. Because in reality, there are two main factors responsible for the homeless crisis that we see in certain parts of the country, and I'm going to name them for you so that you can understand them. The first one, and this should be obvious, is warm weather. If you have warm weather, then you are more likely to have people living on the streets because they are more likely to be comfortable living on the streets. And the second one, if you live in one of these warm weather cities that aren't flooded with homeless people in every one of your major metropolitan areas, is the Ninth Circuit Court. This is the reason why, in the West Coast in particular, we are seeing a present and growing homeless population, and we have been seeing so for a very long time, because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled time and time again that homeless people have all of these extra rights and privileges that are definitely not in the Constitution and are ridiculous and absurd in every possible way. They have ruled that you have a constitutional right to camp out in public. Remember, constitutional rights are supposed to protect your innate human rights as given to you by the Creator if you're a religious person, or by virtue of our humanity if you're somebody who's from a more secular strain. So what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled is that people have a natural, God-given human right to camp all over California, set up 10 cities, and ruin every single area that they're in. Because of these two issues more than anything else, because of the lax enforcement and because of the warm weather, California is just flooded all over with homeless people, 10 cities, and yes, they are a problem and they need to be removed from the streets by force if necessary, especially if they're mentally ill. And I know people are going to talk about California's housing policy. We've discussed a lot about California's insane housing policy, how environmental regulations allow any random jackass to sue any developer and bog them down in court cases, sometimes for 20 years, by the way, in order to keep anything from being developed in the state of California. But the thing is, other states in the same area, other states covered by the same circuit court that have declared a God-given, natural, by dint of your humanity, human right to camp on the streets and live in an open-air drug market, have these same exact problems as California, but don't have nearly the same level of housing regulations, and also don't have nearly the same level of warm weather. So policy is a huge contributing factor in this. In New York City, we have crappy weather for the homeless at least 6 months out of the year, and guess what? We were able to get them off the street under Giuliani, under Michael Bloomberg. Bill de Blasio comes in and he says, you know what? Quality of life crimes, we're not going to enforce that anymore. And guess what? In the city of New York, you saw the return of the homeless people. So we have the capacity to deal with this. That capacity is largely, even if you're in a warm weather area, and that makes it a little bit harder, through enforcement, yet we refuse to do so. It's not about housing. Again, look at the other states with similar problems covered by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and compare that to California. It's not about just warm weather. San Francisco, which is within California, doesn't have great weather like Southern California. New York, again, Bill de Blasio made the homeless problem reemerge. It's about a lack of enforcement. So they're putting up this signage. They're advocating for these people to get off the streets. They've had enough, and they've identified the correct issue. It is the governments that are refusing to do what they can in order to get these people off the streets.
A group of Santa Monica residents and business owners say the problems have gotten so bad, they're taking matters into their own hands to get local officials' attention.
And we've had enough, and so we're using free speech as a way to raise awareness and let people know this is actually the truth about Santa Monica.
Members of the Santa Monica Coalition draped this sign over a boarded-up business on the 3rd Street Promenade, reading, "Santa Monica is not safe."
Look, she's 100% right, and I absolutely love the fact that they put up this sign, that they're trying to do something. They're forming this coalition in order to fight back against the city of Santa Monica, like all these California cities completely overrun by progressive idiots, and trying to get these people off the streets because they're ruining the businesses. They're ruining the environment.
There's sex workers here.
So I need to take a sidebar for a moment and talk about the term sex worker. I absolutely hate it. I can't stand it. It is stupid and ridiculous, and I hate this trend in the United States of America where we actually go out of our way to make language less useful in order to communicate. A hooker is not the same thing as a porn actress. A porn actress is not the same thing as a stripper, and none of these people are the same thing as the OnlyFans girl that some of you unfortunately are addicted to, which maybe we will do a whole separate video and discuss that a little bit later another time. We have individual words for these things. We don't need to change all of that to sex workers, especially when a bunch of these people neither work nor have sex. I'm not on board with it. I think we need to have a counter-revolution against the term sex worker and start designating people in the categories that they actually belong. If you're out on the streets, guess what? You're a street hooker. That's just a fact. If you're in a brothel, then you're a brothel prostitute. Again, that's just how it works. If you're a stripper, then guess what? You're a stripper. Now, if you're stripping outside, then you must be some kind of homeless person or streaker, or you're somebody who's looking for the nearest public school because I'm sure you're missing your drag queen story hour booking.
There's sex workers here. There's drug dealing in the open. 8, 9 in the morning, 10, 11 at night. We have 4 to 5 people dying a month in the alleys from overdoses of fentanyl.
Just think about what this man just said right there. Forget about the fact that he used the term sex worker and we're kind of against him for that, and focus on what he just told this person on the local news. 4 to 5 people are dying of overdoses every single month on the streets in the alleyways of Santa Monica, a formerly very nice part of California. Is this really the more compassionate thing? Is this really the kind thing to do to allow these people, by dint of the Ninth Circuit declaration of a natural, God-given constitutional right that they get due to the fact that they are humans and thus they have humanity? It's not. Obviously, you're letting these people live in open-air drug markets. They're not getting the help that they need. They're getting significant significantly worse, and this is all avoidable just by enforcing laws that prevent them from being homeless in the streets. You can't have this happening. This idea that you shouldn't be allowed to take your kids anywhere because you have to be compassionate to people as you're watching them kill themselves in the streets makes no sense. It's not humane, it's not logical, and again, it is the great unraveling.
I carry mace at all times, so I can't, even during the day, walk down the promenade and feel safe. And that's not okay. You know, businesses are shutting down. Residents don't come to the promenade. My children can't come down here.
Again, it should be quite telling that the promenade, which is supposed to be the central point, the plaza, the meeting area, where people go to congregate. Yes, I use the word congregate in a sentence. Congratulations, give me $1. Links in the description for your $1 donations. Can't wait to see them. And they can't do that. The residents are avoiding that. The hustle and bustle is not going on. It's been churned over to the vagrants, to the drug addicts, to the street hookers. And yes, we're not using the term sex worker. We're using the term street hookers because they're hookers on the streets, and we want more accurate language, not less accurate language. It's not logical. It's not sensible. It is not normal. And the fact that they're being told time and time again, not only to accept this, but they're somehow not compassionate for being against it is absurd. Now let's toss it over to somebody who's going to lie directly to your face, and I'm going to tell you exactly why he's lying and how shameful it is what he's doing.
Putting up signage like that I find to be very harmful to our business community, to our reputation, and really runs counter to the experience that thousands and thousands of people are having when they come visit our downtown every single day.
So this guy is in denial, and by the way, the reason he's using the Skype blurred background feature is because there's hookahs and drug addicts behind him, and he didn't want you to see that. Also, we get the lower third that crime is back at 2018 levels. Don't worry about it. It's back at 2018 levels. Everything should be calm. Everybody should relax because crime, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I don't know if you guys are informed of this. We have a lower third right there is at 2018 levels. Now let's cut back to the news segment before I disassemble this ridiculous and absurd point.
City representatives acknowledge that Santa Monica faces challenges, but say they're working on the issues.
So there's a lot being done to address any type of criminal activity in downtown, just like there always has been. And numbers are actually down to where they were in 2018. So significant progress is being made.
So he says it right there. You heard it in his own words. Crime is down to 2018 levels. We're doing, and by the way, we've always been working on this. We've always been addressing this issue. And need I remind you that crime is at 2018 levels. Now, maybe, I don't know, the news should provide context for this statement. Maybe the news should actually put up some crime statistics year over year so that you could see what crime being at 2018 levels in Santa Monica actually means, because I think it's quite telling, and that's what I'm gonna do. So right here you could see more or less crime going down every year, year over year, up until about 2015, and then you see 2016, a giant spike in 2017, and of course the largest spike in 2018. Now the chart that I'm showing you right now actually only goes up to 2020, but you could see clearly in terms of violent crime that the violent crime rate in the year 2020 was significantly lower than the violent crime rate in Santa Monica in 2018. So what that means, if he's saying we're back down to 2018 levels, is that 2021 had to have a significant spike well above 2018 levels, and then they drop down to their previous peak over the last 5 years. That is not improvement. That is not something to celebrate. 2018 was one of the worst years of the decade for Santa Monica, and this guy's like, hey, I figured out a way to manipulate statistics. Please take down your sign that's actually informing people of what's going on. Please ignore all the people that are dying in alleyways of fentanyl overdoses, because I don't know if you know this, I want to be compassionate with my blurred Skype background.
These challenges are being addressed. Do we have, work to do? Certainly. We always do. We're a very popular destination.
The city of Santa Monica says the police department is preventing and addressing crime every day. Quote, we care deeply about the success of Santa Monica businesses. It's sad that a small group of landlords are working against our collective success through signage at the very moment when small businesses are welcoming holiday customers.
I know people want to be in denial about this. I know people want to pretend like it's not happening. I know people want to say, well, if nobody deals with the homeless problem, then it doesn't exist, but absolutely not. this Santa Monica group that put up the sign is correct. This guy that is going full crime denial is ridiculous and absurd. And by the way, the property crimes are exactly the same as the violent crimes. If you look at them on the chart, 2018 was the highest year in recent years, so it doesn't go past 2020. But we can assume if he's saying it's back down to 2018 levels, then that means he's using the 2021 dramatic spike that we're not seeing on this chart, the even more dramatic spike, as a new baseline. And no, that new baseline is not the new normal. This idea that we should accept the year that we saw the largest increase in homicide in American history, a 30% increase, as the new baseline that we judge ourselves against is absurd. It's just as absurd as these people who say, well, it's not as bad as the 1990s. Well, the 1990s was really bad in terms of violent crime. The 1990s was really bad in terms of homicide. But you know what we didn't have in the 1990s? 4 to 5 people dying in an alley in Santa Monica due to fentanyl overdoses. So in some ways, it's actually worse than the 1990s. In some parts of the country, it actually technically is worse than the 1990s in terms of homicide and in terms of violent crime. But even if we were slightly better than the worst time in American history in terms of criminality, the idea that we should accept that we should lower the bar to that level, never made any sense. We should shame people for bringing it up. And this guy who said, oh, we're back down to 2018 levels, which was a huge high in the previous decade, pay no attention to the statistics and context, just let the local news give me the last word and say, wow, these mean people are kind of mean putting up that sign saying Santa Monica is not safe, because in reality, the government officials in Santa Monica would prefer if you just ignored the fact that it was unsafe. Look, I love fighting back against the government. I love naming these people, shaming them, and I love the public humiliation for government officials who refuse to do their job. But the thing is, you have to realize that this is what you're going to be up against. Cherry-picked out of context statistics in order to deflect from the issue that yes, it's getting worse, your eyes are not lying to you, you should be paying attention, and you need to change who you're voting for. I know a lot of people love to say, all these people will still vote for Democrats. Well, how about we wait and see? How about we wait and see which type of Democrats they're going to vote for? How about we see if there's actually pushback? Maybe the Supreme Court, our federal Supreme Court, should actually review the Ninth Circuit decisions that grant all of these insane, non-existent constitutional rights to the homeless, and get rid of that, because you're essentially hamstringing one part of the country, all based on this idea that the Ninth Circuit, the most leftist court in the country, should be able to grant constitutional rights whole cloth. And by the way, the current Supreme Court should review that case post haste. They need to go over this kind of thing. They need to review this and they need to overturn it, because eventually the conservatives are not going to hold the Supreme Court. Eventually the leftists are going to appoint more Ketanji Brown Jackson types, and I guarantee you Ketanji Brown Jackson has some crazy views about how the Constitution doesn't have a Second Amendment, doesn't protect your right to own a gun, but definitely protects your God-given, ordained by the Bible itself in our Constitution, our sacred, by dint of our humanity right to camp out in an open-air drug market on the west coast of this country, but she's going to expand that to nationwide. So yeah, we need to challenge and overturn this nonsense. California is kind of going against it when they have bad politicians, but even if they had good ones, they have to go up against the Ninth Circuit, and something needs to be done. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias, all of them, every single one. Support me via the description box links. Till next time.